Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I hope that you're all doing well. I just thought I'll jump on and run through price action for maybe not GU, as I've been trading GU. Let's do a pair that I have not really followed. I have a rough idea of see what EU has done, but I don't really know in terms of price action, whether it's given any entries or whatever. Anyway, the reason why I'm doing this video is purely to show you guys that it doesn't matter what model you follow. It's all about sticking to the plan. It's becoming incredibly frustrating, incredibly annoying, hearing the constant complaints that this isn't working, this isn't working. Then you suddenly move to a completely new model. I don't appreciate the disrespect saying that some of these models are just providing SL after SL, and it's not the case. I mean, if it was, I wouldn't be doing it, and I wouldn't be teaching the rule set that I do. Is some of you are very quick to put the blame on the models or not even the models, put the blame on the rules, put the blame on the system at hand, rather than looking at yourself and thinking about, is it you that's not put the work in? Is it you that's not being accountable for your actions? And that wasn't a dig at anyone. It's not to. I'm not saying this to offend anyone. It's just to, I'm going to run through price action again. Obviously, I can see the price is obviously bullish, but I'm just going to run through it. I'm going to go through whatever entry models that we have. The only one I'm not going to do is James's model because I don't trade that model, so I can't really teach that. We're just going to see what entry models we can have. And before I get into this video, I already know the questions that will happen when I post this out. Can I do this for New York? Can I do this for Asia? Can I do it for other pairs? Can I do it for other time frames? Can I do it for other models? The answer is no. I don't feel like I need to do it. This is more just an example of what you can be doing in terms of trading sessions. If you want an intraday trade, I'll talk about higher time frame throughout this video, more so near the end. But I'll explain the thought process. I don't feel like I need to do any more of these. I don't feel like I need to do New York or Asia. It makes no difference. It's all about sticking to the process and sticking to the plan. A lot of you, what happens is, for example, my model only gave one trade this whole month, right? And that one trade was a very decent trade. It was a great trade. However, that was the only trade that I had, and I noticed that James's model has not really provided too much the last week and a half or so, but over the month it's given a fair few entries. But ever since I posted my trade, and because James's one has had a weird week or so, I've had several tickets, several DMs about wanting to learn my model, which is completely fine, but the model's been there since August 2022. Right, same with Inception. The same thing happened with Inception. The model was always present. It's just the fact that because it's been a bit quiet, a lot of you don't want to trade it because of the frequency of it. But the win rate is incredibly high, just judging because of the frequency. But as soon as you notice that something's working, something isn't, a lot of you would face it on face value in terms of the short term rather than long term potential of the edge. Then you start to switch and you start to change the rules, start to change the time frame, start to be more aggressive, start to go from higher time frame to lower time frame, start doing all sorts. The only key to be consistent is to be consistent overall with everything that you do. And the only way you do that is, and the only reason why a lot of you will be judging and moving between model to model is purely because you don't have the statistics and you don't have the trust in the model that you're using at the moment. And the only reason you don't have that is because of the lack of testing. Whether you back test, forward test, whatever, or even live test or demo test, you need to appreciate that you need to do that testing in order to build the confidence in whatever you're doing. You should get to the point where you are trading with no hesitation. A lot of you would flit in and out between that, having that motivation. You don't have the motivation all the time, but being motivated to produce results over and over. And then suddenly you'll have, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 losses, and then you'll start losing your head. If you're going to start doing that, trading is going to be very difficult in the long term, and you won't be able to maintain it if you are that emotional. You do need to have some sort of emotional detachment when it comes to trading. Anyway, let's jump in the chart and let's see what EU has presented. So I'm going to focus on my time zone, so 7 to 9 a.m. So this is running from Frankfurt to just after London Open, so an hour after London Open. For me, I find that this is the best time to trade London. I feel like you get the best moves. I mean, if you look at previous days, I mean that wasn't a great move, but most of the time you do get some solid moves, and it's not the move of that particular session. That is the continuations that you get afterwards, which tend to give decent moves. You know what? This actually shows why my model's been so quiet. To be fair, it's barely had any decent moves, but regardless, we're gonna focus on that session. So let's go to the beginning. Let's go to there. Now, for any of you higher time frame traders, so the first thing you're obviously going to do is see what the higher time frame is obviously showing you. So if we understand what's happening from the daily, so this is something that you would have done before you come into the session. So from the daily, what we can see is breaker structure. Where's the low confirmed here? High low. Okay, the only POI I can see that's clear just off the bat is this wick here. So that's the only thing I can say there. 4 hour, so judging from the 4 hour POI, the 4 hour range high is here. It's not overly clear. Let me put that on there. If anything, you would expect some sort of reaction from here. Let's just go in the hourly. Just bear in mind the reason why you saw that 4 hour wick is purely because of we're using the replay tool. Now, if you're on the hourly, however, the hourly low is here, the hourly high is all the way here. So you're stuck in this range at the moment. So we've still got this hourly high that needs to break, and that low. So we're stuck in that hourly range overall. We don't need to go to 15, I don't think. No. Okay. So let's start off with the lowest probability entries that we can have. So let's start off with risk entries. Now, say you want to trade the session and you want to do risk entries with somewhat high probability. You want to use somewhat of a higher what's the word? You want to use somewhat higher time frames in order to be effective, right? So the only thing I can see is this 15-minute time. This 15-minute OB. So you can see the price is bullish. We also have order flow mitigation, so we can find this and we can refine. Actually, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to lose it. How big is this PY anyway? Oh, it's not that big anyway. So we can place a risk entry on that should price get there, but we'll see. We'll see how price develops. Actually, you know what? I'll mark it on here, but I'll move it quite low. So also for this video, I'm not going to go to the 1 second because I know it's the hardest time frame for a lot of you. The lowest I'll go down to is, let's say, the 5 second. I think the 5 second is pretty standard for a lot of you, but I'll try to stick on the 5 minute, 1 minute as much as possible for you guys. And in terms of stop losses, we'll do between 2 to 5 pips stop losses and go from there. So this one's a bit too tight in terms of getting the 5 pips. So what you would do, and this is going off what I used to do back in the day when I was first learning. This should give me a tight stop loss, somewhat tight. Because the buy spread shouldn't be too much of an issue. Let's go with 3. That should be fine. So that'll be your first risk entry that you have coming into the session, right? Let's just check the 5 minute before we go and see if there's anything on the 5 minute that we can take. 5 minutes is a pretty good time frame in order to even do 5 minute and 1 minute confirmations, or 5 minute and 1 minute and then 5 second inceptions. Just to save yourself time that you don't need to go to the 1 second, because again the 5 second, because obviously that 4 second slower, sorry, is a little bit easier for a lot of you to trade. So which is why I won't go to the 1 second in this video. Anyway, judging from the 5 minute, let's see what is happening on the 5 minute. So we have 5-minute low, high. We've got this breaker structure, and we've got this POI here, which price is tap into now. We're not going to start trading until it hits 7 anyway. And now, if this was the case, the only thing that I can say is we can do risk entry from, for example, here. But this is as we come into the session. So let's say when it comes into 7. This is exactly 7. So this is when we place the order, and that comes perfectly for that refinement as well. Now, in terms of minimum targets, I will explain that briefly. So I'm just going to move this up. But obviously, the minimum target that we have, say this is the 5-minute time frame, for this to be a winning trade, it just has to take out this low, take out this high. Sorry. Now, in this case, right, that is only a what? That's a 1 to 2, which is fine. It's not a problem. It's the fact that it's appreciating that that's the winning trade. Everything more than that is just a bonus. I think what we need to understand is that there has to be some sort of appreciation for where your wins are and what actually is a winning trade. Because say a lot of you would do this where price will reach here, it'll be 2R or whatever it is, and then you'll class it as a losing trade when price goes on hits a SL, because you haven't moved to break even, for example. Let's just say that was the case. If you have done that, right, then you need to put in your journal, you need to make sure you understand that that was a winning trade overall. It's just your risk management that let you down. A lot of it is not down to the models or the rules that you're using. It's more down to how you manage your risk and how you manage the trade overall. So anyway, this is the first thing that I'm going to do. So let's stick to risk entries for now. I don't want to confuse you guys. We'll go in some sort of order. I didn't really plan this video, so I'm just gonna make it up as we go anyway. So let's get going. So let's go to the M1 and we'll follow it from there. So we're gonna go from 7 o'clock. So we're triggered in this trade, and then we would have been taken out. So we'd have hit a -1 if we did a risk entry on that one. Let me go back. So just so I'm going, let's go back to about here. Okay. So we're taking the first loss, and obviously that's with a risk entry. It makes sense. It's obviously a higher risk, and that's the acknowledgement you need to take. The minimum target was there, which we didn't hit. So we triggered on that one, and we took a loss on that one. Okay. Now let's judge again what the 5 minute is doing. So the 5-minute range low was all the way here. What I could have done is, looking back, I obviously could have just covered the range low, which would have given me, 4.5 pips. Still would have been in that trade. I don't know if it would have hit the minimum target. It would have hit the minimum target, which is 1.4 or 1.5 even, around it. I could have done that to be safer, but obviously I went for that risk entry, judging from this, because I didn't expect the price to come in lower. But if you want to be safer, obviously go for the range low. But I will take whatever that loss was. Did I do 2 pips on that one? I can't remember. I think it was 2 pips. No, it wasn't 2 pips. It must have been 3 then, because this was a 1 to 2, wasn't it? Whatever I did, I think it was a 1 to. I think it was a 2 pip or 3 pip. I can't remember. Anyway, that was a loss. Okay. So that was the first risk entry, and you would have lost. Now, let's say if you're going to go into sessions, okay, you're going to ignore whatever happened in the past. However, you're going to stick to whatever structure is saying. Let's go back and let's mark structure as we go. I don't want to look too much at price. So let's just go from here. Okay, so judging price, the best way in order to follow risk entries is to follow the initial 2 rules of the session, if you are going to do that. Purely because that is the fresh set of rules for that session. So what you need to wait is for the first intent to present. So price is already bearish, as you can see here. So the last range low is here. I'm going to move this. You guys know that I lost there, just so I can see. And I'm going to move. I'll keep this for now, actually. No, actually, I'll move it. Forget it. We don't need that anymore. We got this range low, and the range high was all the way here. Now price then eventually took out, and now we've got bullish intent because we took out this high. So if we're going to do risk entries, right? Why did I get all this stuff then? Okay, so if we're going to do risk entries, you have this POI here, which now that is broken, we can place an order here. This can give us a 3 pip stop, and obviously we're going to aim for whichever the minimum target is for there. So let's carry this on. Okay, price doesn't come back. Another thing actually I want to say is, if you're not too worried about what the stop loss is, remember in terms of what the OB actually is, the OB range is from the range that creates the selling or buying pressure before the bullish move or bearish move. So in this case, the OB is somewhere within here. Price needs to mitigate anything within here. Okay, and this itself, even though this is the OB, that's the refinement. This is another refinement of this OB itself. And again, going down to lower time frames will be another refinement of this OB. But the actual range itself of the reaction should be somewhere within here. If you're not too fussed about how you want, if you're not too fussed about how tight you want your stop losses, what you can do is you can mark at the range itself, where 50% was where this OB was anyway. You could do 50%, or if you're not too fussed, I think this is massive though, you could just enter at the open of that range, and you know, if you want to follow it a bit loosely, it's completely up to you. I personally would not. I personally wouldn't do that myself. It's for me. It's you know, between 2 to 5 pips was that was fine. I'd rather stick to that. It's purely because I want to gain as much as I can from a small move, because I want to be somewhat in and out. Because the idea is I want to do I want to trade intraday or intra-session and then be done. I'm not looking for swings at the moment in this video. I'm not going to be explaining that. It's just whatever I can catch in this session and then be done for the day, right? But now our price is broken, so we've got rule 1 and now we've got rule 2. We do have our OB here, so we've got an option to place 2 orders. Now in this case, we could place an order here. We said our minimum would be 2, and then we'll target wherever the high is. Okay, so now price is triggered, and this is a weird one because this price is triggered and created this high itself. Well, the high of this range was here, so this was already a winning trade. Obviously, this one would be a rubbish risk reward, I think. 1 to 1.2, yeah, it's not the best anyway. I'm going to explain about targets a bit later on once I've kept this on. What I'm going to do is I'll keep all the winning trades on, and then I'll explain the potential of, if there is any higher time frame potential, what we can do from that. In terms of what I would do from my perspective and my vision, right? So in this case, this order will be deleted so that we won't be taking that. I'm sorry if you heard that, I just slapped the bloody microphone. There you go. Okay, so we would have been entering in this trade, and that's the only risk entry style that you would do. Okay. Another way that you can do risk entries, and I can already see it, is following risk entries but using order flow. So what you can do is wait for some sort of mitigation to happen, and then you look for your entries. So say for example, this second entry is obviously higher probability than the first one, and then I'm trying to go in order, right? I'm sorry if this is confusing. Okay, so this entry is higher probability than this one. If you want to be even safer, obviously you can cover the whole range, but then at that point it doesn't really make sense. If it was what I would do and what I was doing back in the day was I was placing 2 orders, whichever one it reacted off. But it depends on risk tolerance and what you're happy to, what you're happy and what you're able to emotionally handle, basically. Okay. So in this case, we're still going to stick to risk entries. What we can see is that now we've got this mitigation and we've got this POI here. The mitigation that we have was this bit. Okay, so now we've got that and we've got this POI. Now this is obviously a rough POI that we can do. Now that it's broken, we can simply, let's see what that range is. How big is that? I mean, this is a fairly big, you can do 4 pips, fairly big. Which is not a problem as such. I mean, okay, the 50% of the range and the base of this wick trick makes sense, and this can give us, let's give it a bit more room. Let's go 2.5 on that one. There we go. Okay, and that'll be the next entry that I can see if price does get there, so we get triggered into that. I don't know if this would trigger on depending on the account. I don't know if that would trigger, depending on spread. If you're in that position, right, when you're obviously, you know where it should be hitting, just bear in mind with EU should be okay. Actually, it should be like 0 to 0.1 pip spread, depending on your broker and the spread of it. Say if this was GU, right, I would personally basically order a little bit above. Otherwise, it was definitely not going to trigger. If you want to sell, obviously it's a bit different. In this case, the minimum target was here, which was reached. So that's another winning setup there, and that would be in a 1.24. Yeah, 1.24. Again, I'll see the whatever potential we have here in terms of further risk entries. There's nothing more I would have done on that one. So let's talk about what potential. So say you're in this trade, you already have reached a minimum target. Now you're thinking, is there any higher time frame potential? The first thing that I would do is look at your 4 hour. You should already have a rough idea in terms of what your 4 hour should do. This is a bit annoying because the wick's already reached wherever I was going to talk about. Anyway, the only thing I can see is we may get a reaction from this POI here, or we may take out this 4 hour high. Now, for me personally, what I would recommend doing is you can place an alert here and then see what price does. Alternatively, take a partial here and then close the full trade as soon as it takes out the 4 hour high. So say in this case, I don't know what it does actually. Let's see what it does. So we end up taking the 4 hour high. Okay, that's fine. So in this case, say, so the first entry was here. So first entry would have given you a 1 to 19. The second entry, which is the highest probability entry using risk entries, would have given you a 1 to 14. Okay, and then bear in mind, obviously, the first risk entry would have taken a loss. If, for example, let's forget that one because that 15 minute obviously wasn't hit. If, the first risk entry from the 5 minute, where is it? Yeah, here. If, for example, I'll just go back to this just so I can explain it. If we covered this low, and then say if we refine it to this just to get a tighter stop loss, so whatever that was, we obviously won't have 4.5. If we aimed for that high there, so if you're being conservative, you would be at 1 to 9. That's without partials, by the way. I'm not going to work out partials because that math is a bit too difficult for me. So forget that. We're not going to talk about that. But that's one way that you can do risk entries in itself. Now let's talk about confirmations and how you can do confirmations and still trade intra-session. So I'll keep these on because I'll keep this on. It shouldn't be too messy. Or should I take them off? I guess you got an idea. Let me take them off. Okay, so let's not go in the second time frame just yet. Okay, so let's go back to the 5 minute, and we're gonna go back to let's go back to here. Obviously, we already know what price does. We already know what the targets are gonna hit now, but it's just about whether it gives us an entry or not, and what losses we'll take along the way. So in this case, okay, so we have this range. We got that range low there. Okay. Now, the first thing that you're going to look for in this case, so we've got a 5 minute. Once we come into the session, we're going to be in the M1. Now we're going to look for the confirmations. Now, confirmation entries, we're going to use M1. I think it's going to give us the same as the risk entries now, which makes sense why the risk entries actually worked. It is basically going to give us the same actually. So in this case, we would have had I feel like I didn't explain something properly. Yes, sorry. If we go back to risk entries quickly, I just had a thought. So because obviously this was the range from here, and that was the range low. So the OB is obviously somewhere within this range there. What you can effectively do is obviously mark out. Now, if you're going to do risk entries and you want the best probability of risk entry, effectively, we want to look into that range and find a nice. Okay, it's a bit annoying because we can see the reaction. But say if you want to do a risk entry from, where's the clearest OB? Did that break? No, that broke. Okay, so the only OB that we have that's not been touched is there, so which is eventually gets tapped there, and we can have probably a 2.5 on that one just to cover the range low. Again, obviously, I probably would have done that just to be a bit more strict. But obviously, if we're doing our minimums too, that still would have hit. So if you put it below the range here. And obviously it's easier for me to say now that it's already been done. I'm just trying to explain to get my point across on it. And the target was to take out that 4-hour high. That would have given you a 1 to 17. But again, that was a risk entry, so it's still a high probability, not high probability, it's still a low probability setup. Okay, so now that we're in a 5-minute POI and we're waiting for that 5-minute reaction, okay, and bear in mind, we're only going to do confirmation at this point. We're not going to go to the second time frame just yet. So we have the 5-minute and now we have M1 reaction. So we've got M1, first entry was obviously here, which we know doesn't reach. And then, you know what, I don't need to put that on, you guys understand that. And the next one, obviously, we know that the second entry would have been here. And that would have been, obviously, the first target would have been hit, which was the minimum. And then, obviously, we got overall move, which is a 1 to, it's not 1 to 12, we got 2 pip on this one. Yeah, a 1 to 19, okay, without partials. Alternatively, again, if you want to do a confirmation entry with order flow, exactly the same process where obviously we've got that mitigation play, and then we've got this range here, and then obviously we found that we are going to put our entry point there with our stop loss below the low. I think that's a bit too tight. And then we'll just go from there and continue. Again, I'm not sure whether this would have tapped or not. I'm not sure. Okay. So that was following the 5-minute and doing a 1-minute confirmation. Now let's say we might as well go into this, for example. Say we missed this confirmation, or you want to use 5 minutes, some more order flow from that. So because what we have here now is that we have 5-minute, we have a break of structure, we have some sort of weird mitigation, but there's mitigations there. We had the mitigation play and then we had a new break, and all we need to wait for is a new POI. Now, in this case, the POI isn't very clear, in my opinion. The only thing I can say is this wick is probably the most extreme. Probably 50% of wherever, 50% of this wick's or wherever. So say roughly about there. Actually, let's not do roughly because I don't want you guys doing roughly. Oh, I wasn't far off, to be fair. There we go. Okay, now that we have 5-minute bullish order flow, all we have to do is wait for. Okay, that's broken again. All we need to wait for is a 5-minute POI. So now we've got this 5-minute POI here. Now again, if you want to go back to risk entries now to make it higher probability, is now we've got a higher time frame. Say this is a good 5 minutes, good higher time frame for intraday sessions. To be fair, intra-session trades. So now we've got 5-minute 2 rules. Effectively, you can place your order on this one as a massive stop. To be fair, so depending again, that's depending on your risk tolerance. For me, that's big. So let's go, that would be what, 3 pips, and then we'll target to take out that 4-hour high. Let's see if it does reach or not, and it doesn't. Okay, that doesn't reach, that's fine. Okay, so we would not have had a trade on that one. Anyway, so let's do, so now we've got the 5-minute POI. We can also look into confirmations within that. I don't think we have any because that would have broken that range. Yeah, that would have broken the range and continue. So we wouldn't have had an entry on that point. And in this case, I wouldn't necessarily want to follow the POIs as such because at this point you're coming too late to the session. And then because we've obviously got this 5-minute POI here, and this is somewhat order flow because we've got this mitigation play. Bear in mind that the OB ranges from here to here. We've got mitigation into that. So now we do have this POI here, but this is outside my trading time, so I'm not going to bother looking at that. This is another thing, when you're testing, you don't need to test outside your session that you want to trade. The way that I found my session is to find which sessions produce the best moves. It makes sense obviously to trade the session opens because that's when you get the most moves, and generally when you get say for example you get some sort of reaction with a very positive move, which is say the session opens, price doesn't generally retrace all the way back. You generally get a small retrace and then price continues, and then it phases, then it eventually comes back. We are trying to capitalize on the fact that price doesn't come back and it just continues for a fair while, for about between 10 to 30 pips, right? But anyway, that was confirmation entries. Let's talk about inception entries. So this is when we'll go into the 5 seconds. So let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. I don't know what all these are now. I'll keep this one. So inception entry. So we've got the 5 minute. I don't need to go back and keep going back and forth on the replay tool because we already know what price is doing. So in this case, obviously we've got the 5 minute POI and we're looking for our 1 minute POIs here. So we've got 1 minute POI here, and the second 1 minute POI is the second 1 minute POI is there. Okay, and then we're going to go to the 5 second. I'm going to see what entries present now. Why is it being weird? There we go. Okay, so once price was in there, once it tapped it, which was here, obviously this is a weird one because this kind of created that range high on its own. Now in this case, what we can do is now we've got 1 minute 2 rules. We've got the 5 minute. Was it 5 minute 2 rules or 5 minute rule 1? I can't remember. Yeah, 5 minute. We've got the 5 minute rule 1, but we've got 1 minute rule 2. So depending on, let's just move it to here. So if it was me, rule 1 entry on the inception time frame was my go-to. So we could have entered off. So from this case, I would have entered from here with a 3 pip stop. I think because I think that's a bit too tight to do 2.5 myself. 3 pip is fine, and then your target is going to be obviously the 4-hour high. Okay, so this is obviously we're going in probability order, so we go from risk entries to confirmation. Now we're in inception. So that would have been a 1 to 12. And then obviously if we're going to do 2 rules, this would have obviously broken that overall range, so that wouldn't have worked anyway. So that would have broke that 1 minute full range. Now in this case, alternatively, if you're not going to follow the 5 minute whatever happened previously, you can obviously follow the range by range, which is what I was doing on the 15 second. So if you follow range by range, right, in terms of what the session is doing, obviously range high, range low, range high, range. So obviously that could have been the first entry. Obviously once price broke, then that's it. The next entries we could have had was from this POI itself. So I'm just going to move this one. So you've already seen that one. I'm going to move this POI itself. This is a high probability POI purely because we have that order flow and mitigation. So if I go back to the 5 second, let's see if there's a 5 second entry within that. It would have been here. Wait, hold on a sec. No, let me just mark it out so I'm sure. Yeah, it would have been around there. So, judging on from here, right? So we're coming into this. The problem is obviously that's the full range. So this one would be a fairly awkward one. So I wouldn't really enter that one myself. The only thing I could say is we have another mitigation play, another OB, high probability POI. Let's wait for it to come in. If it does come in, I don't know. That doesn't come in. Again, we've got another range here, and let's see if there's a 5 second entry point here. This is obviously quite a big POI actually. Looking at it, how big is it? Yeah, so let's do. I'll stick to it. 5 minutes fine. Let's see whatever happens. Okay, so we've got order flow. We've got obviously our 2 rules. Initial 2 rules already completed. So what we can do is wait for the range to break. Nope. Range low, range high is now here. I just realised I probably should mark structure for you guys. I'm under the assumption that structure would be fine by now. There we go. If you're obviously new to the course, don't watch this video. This video won't make sense. It's probably a bit too late for me to say this. Okay, so we're waiting for a break of this range, which is not happening just yet. let's continue. Where's the range high? Range high does not change. So let's continue here. So range low is there, and range high is here. So we've got the first break. So first breaker structure, we could place our order here with the POI below the low, 2 pip as a minimum. And then obviously we've got the second one, which is here. Now for this one, because of that candle, because of the volume of that candle, just cover the range of that. So as in the whole sell range, again 2 pip POI, 2 pip range, sorry. Okay, so that would have triggered, let's see if it does stop out or not. Okay, so they're both stopped out, so you would have taken the loss on these ones. So you would have taken a 2R doing a, following the, what model was that? Following the inception model and following range by range. Price eventually, so if you follow range by range, we're following by set, right? So we've got rule 1, rule 2. So we do have this POI here. The only thing you need to be wary of now is obviously the bearish POI, which is this one. That, or is that the bearish POI? There we go. The bearish POI is all the way here. So now we just need to be wary of the fact that price can just continue bearish. So we would have taken 2 losses on that one. Well, I would have taken 2 losses on that one if I was going to trade it. So now we've got this reaction. Let's continue following and see if it provides us another entry. So we've got, again, in terms of mentioning, in terms of entries, you can also enter various ways. You can enter on the pullback by placing limits, so you can do market execution, or you can enter on the breakout. So you could have entered on the breakout of that range, this range here, and then obviously you would have had still a 2 pip stop, which would have been fine. It's completely up to you. Suggest watching the entry adaptation video in the FAQ section, just so you know what I'm on about. So now we've broken that range, so we can actually place an order. So the order that we have, this is a strange one because the range low is all the way here. That's the only thing I can say. We've got this one, so let's continue. Okay, so now we've just broken another range, and this will be the last one that we'll go for on this one. So in this case, we can aim for that whole range because we'll still get 2 pips on this one. Let's see what happens here. And price doesn't come back, and price just continues. Now in this case, obviously we're going off the M1. Has it broken that full range yet? No. So we can go to either the 10-second, which I doubt price will come back to at this point. We're coming, it's past London Open, so at this point you don't really get too many entries. But anyway, we can move this to here to match this one. And in terms of the first range, we would have this one, where the price does continue. Price just continues up, so it wouldn't have given us an entry if we followed that inception. Now another way we could have followed inception, I believe there was another 5-minute POI here, wasn't there? So we could have had, let's get rid of all of that. The next 5-minute POI that we would have had was here, which price tapped, and we can see if there was an inception for that. So in this case, we had break number 1, so obviously we've got entry point number 1 from this high volume candle there with the 2 pip stop, which would eventually be break even. Yes, I think most likely would have been break even. Yeah, it would have been break even. Alternatively, also we've got the 2 rules, so we've got rule number 2, which also would have been break even. So we would have taken on this one, and then we've got this. Oh, it wouldn't have wouldn't have triggered. Once we've done that, obviously we've gone up the time frame, so would have gone up and seen what happens after that. So effectively we've got this range, so we would have went up about here. So in judging from the 2 rules in this case, so we would have rule 1 and then rule 2, so we'd have to go up again, because Once price obviously violates two rules, you have to go out the time frame. Then you would have had break number one, and then the POI that you could have had. So the range low was here, right? So the POI is not the clearest OB. Let's see what that range would have. Bloody hell! Why is that all the way? Why is that massive? The POI, that would have been a huge one. So actually, could have got away with 2 pips, but that's a bit tight. So 2.5 on that one. And then obviously the target would have been all the way here. So that's what you could have done. Again, if you're going to follow the inception model there. I don't know why I pressed play, because price is already gone. But that would have been what? A 1 to 10. What other model can I explain? Disruption model on the M1, if there was one. I don't think there was one, judging by it. No, there's nothing in that session there. Was there a disruption prior to this session? No, no disruption there. Was there? Making sure I haven't missed anything. No, there's no disruption in this session. So, you know, this video is trying to give you an example of what you could have done in terms of just following the very basic model. It's not even anything. I mean, Inception's not the basic, to be fair. Inception's a bit harder. And in fact, even the high probability one gave 2 losses compared to the other ones. But what I'm trying to show is it's not about the system. It's not about the system at hand. It's about how you manage your risk, how you manage your trades, and what you classify as a winning trade. If you're going to trade sessions time frame, with like a lot of you are, which I fully understand, I think is probably the best way to trade, in my opinion, in order to get higher risk to reward with less amount of work, less amount of time, and then be done for the day. In terms of, I could be finished in, like the trade I took on Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Today's only Tuesday. The trade I took yesterday. Gosh, I'm getting old. The trade I took yesterday was like within 10 minutes in. I was already in the trade and I was done. I was already at break even. So whatever happened after that, I was finished. So that was effectively 10-15 minutes worth of work, and I was already in the trade and I was done. And that was, what did it end up? Just over 50R overall with partials. The idea behind that, and going back to how I used to trade in terms of swing trading, it was more the fact that I was able to extrapolate higher risk to reward in a short space of time and have more control over the time that I spend on the chart. Because for me, I want to spend the least amount of time, because I can't personally concentrate 100% of the time and still be effective. I can't do that. I can't trade 2 sessions in a day and still be effective. That's just my understanding of myself. What I suggest doing is, going forward, is I don't feel like I need to do like these end of the day videos of what price has done in terms of following price action. I don't feel like I need to do that. I feel like the sessions, in terms of testing the models, testing whatever time frames you want to do, testing what probabilities work best for you, what risk management works for you, I suggest that is what you should be testing. And this is what I'm doing now, is effectively whatever model you propose to test is what you should be doing for a fair amount of time. In terms of, not by a fair amount of time, I mean give it a few weeks, a few months even, rather than giving it a few days, take a few losses, start complaining, start whining, start losing your head. If you're going to be that emotional, you should not be here. You should not be trading, and that is the harsh reality of it. It's, if you can't handle basic things, even though you've got a working edge in front of you, then either find another edge or just get on with it. You have to make that. You have to make that jump, and you have to make that decision in terms of following what you trust. And the only way you'll gain that trust is by doing that forward testing, either live testing or demo testing. I personally just test live now. I never used to. It was only recently. Over the last few years, I've been testing live. More so because I'm just happy. If I take a loss, it doesn't really bother me as such. But to get to that point, you need to be comfortable and have to have faith in your rules. Like even doing this video, Like I could have obviously taken several losses, but it's, I think obviously if say some of you recap this same price action, you probably won't get the exact same things. Even though rules say exactly the same, everyone's understanding and everyone's risk tolerance is very different. Some of you are trading these models and probably didn't even see these trades that were present there, right? And I probably missed trades that you found. By the way, this was just a rough. It was just a rough video. I didn't really put too much effort into it in terms of. I didn't go into too much detail in order to get the best out. Like for me, if I wanted to trade my best, I would have went from my normal time frames, 15 second, 1 second, and I would have looked to extrapolate as much as I can from that. What I was trying to show is you what the basic models can achieve. I didn't know prior to this video, prior to even recording, I didn't know what the models would give you in the session. I just thought I'd just randomly jump on and see what the session gives you. And that's just an example, and that's just obviously one day. It's not to say that every day is going to be exactly the same, but what I suggest you doing is at the end of the day or whenever you have time, look at the session that you want to trade, test every single model, just look at every single model, see what gives you, see what probabilities give you, see what win rate gives you, see what risk to reward it gives you, judge yourself on how you manage a trade, be honest on that side, and then determine from that, build the statistics. You have to build that data, otherwise you won't have that trust. The difference between yourself and me and James, me for example, is the fact that I created the rules, I created this edge, right? James has his confidence because he did his own testing and saw it for himself. He understood it for himself, and then again, when he was starting this, he had a better tolerance of risk. He was happy to take losses, so it was a bit different. He wasn't starting learning from like fresh, like a lot of you guys are. But you can't directly compare. I mean, compare results, for example, but don't take it as a direct comparison because not everyone reacts the same. It's not just following the edge. There's more to it. There's like psychology. In terms of psychology, I mean risk management, risk tolerance, for example. Some of you may be happy to take more risk than I do. Like for me, I risk 0.25%. Some of you may think that's quite low. I've had questions where why is it so low if your win rate is so high? Yet also, a lot of you tend to factor out the fact that my account is generally bigger. I don't necessarily need to risk too much if you're in that case. Obviously, when I was trading a little smaller account, I was trading a higher percentage because the risk was I was happy to take. It's what you are happy to stomach as a risk, basically. And 0.25% of my account is what I'm happy to see in the red, basically. I don't want anything more than that. I don't think I can stomach it. But what I suggest doing is really think about yourself, think and understand and learn about yourself a bit better. I hope this video has given you a bit of clarity. Again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I'm not going to do this for every session. Probably not going to do a video like this again. I don't think I need to, because I mean the testing has already been done for you. It's up to you to do the rest in order to build your own testing and build your data. I don't have to spoon feed you to do all that for you, and that's not being harsh. I think I was being too generous over the last few years about how supportive I've been, and it's probably, it's not really worked in my favor for you guys. I think not in my favor, as in for your favor. I think a lot of you become quite dependent, which is why I'm trying to push as much forward thinking, as much forward testing as I can this year, because I want to see the biggest changes I can. I don't want to. I know I keep talking about this and it's quite morbid, but I don't want to leave here knowing that I didn't push you guys hard enough. I don't know why I keep mentioning it. I just, I'm not feeling very well at the moment, and I'm not feeling well over the last few months. So, in myself, I don't feel too great, and I don't want to. Sorry. I want to make sure that you guys can take as much information from me as possible before anything happens. I'm not to say that it's going to happen, but anytime soon. I just want to make sure that everything's out here for you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you all take care of yourself. I know it's probably been a fairly long one, but yeah, take care and happy testing.